Should prayer require effort? That's one of the questions we're asking today, because today's weekly edition of Perspectives is a featured conversation with Brother Émile from the Taizé Community. So today we will be sharing perspectives on Taizé. And of course, it's appropriate that we begin then in the little town of Taizé in the region of Burgundy in France.
Moved by a strong sense of community, a young Roger Schutz founded the Taizé Community in 1940 in an effort to welcome the stranger and to provide a source of hope for those whose lives had been ravaged by the war. Schutz's simple spirituality gave way to a constant influx of searching pilgrims, and by 1960, a new church was constructed to accommodate the growing number of pilgrims to Taizé. Today, over 100,000 young people make their way to Taizé each year, making it one of the most high-traffic pilgrimage sites in the world. The brothers of the community, coming from over 30 countries worldwide, share a rule of life rooted in prayer, scripture, and manual labor as a means to provide for themselves. Being an ecumenical community, the brothers at Taizé have opened their arms to many visiting faith leaders from around the world, including Pope John Paul II in 1986. Taizé is now home to 70 brothers, while approximately 30 brothers have made their homes in disadvantaged places around the world. These brothers live as witnesses of peace, hope, and justice for everyone around them.
Now, I first heard of Taizé probably the same way that most of you heard about Taizé. I was a parish musician, and we used to do many of the songs from Taizé, songs like "O Lord, Hear Our Prayer," "Jesus, Remember Me," which is probably the one that most people really know. But like me, most of you probably don't realize that Taizé is much more than just music. And to help us understand Taizé a little better, we're very blessed to have with us in the studio Brother Émile from the community of Taizé. He comes to Canada quite often, and we're very blessed that when you're in the country, you're able to sometimes stop by our studio. Brother Émile, welcome to Perspectives.
Thank you, Pedro.
Taizé is an ecumenical community, but it's a monastic community. Can you explain quickly how that works?
Well, Brother Roger was the founder of the Taizé Community, and he was just a young man when the Second World War broke out. And he was fascinated by community. He thought that people are fed up with words. They're full of words, but they would like to see a visible sign of the gospel, people living together the message. And so he thought community, a monastic community. He had read St. Benedict, the first Christian monks, and he thought that's relevant for today, it's important for today. And that's how he started.
So you follow a Benedictine rule?
The rule of Taizé was written by Brother Roger, but you can tell that it's inspired by St. Benedict. He took a lot of the traditions, for example, work and pray, a wonderful part on welcoming guests.
Right.
A lot of the wisdom of the monastic life, I think, is in the rule of Taizé.
Now, maybe just to clarify for some people, because it is an ecumenical community, your members are not, it's not a Catholic community, but it...
Yeah, I'm Catholic, but the community itself is ecumenical. So the brothers come from different backgrounds, Catholic and Protestant, and live together as one community.
Now, we don't often hear about non-Catholic monastic communities. Why do you think that is?
Originally, it's true, the monastic tradition was abandoned by the Reformation, and so you did not have Protestant communities. Brother Roger himself felt that Christians should be reconciled in order to be credible. And so he started with brothers that were Protestant at the beginning, then Catholic brothers were allowed to enter. And so it became an ecumenical community. And he felt that that's important as a first step almost to be credible. How can we talk about a God of love if we are fighting with each other?
Exactly. And that is, I don't know if it's fair to say, but to my knowledge, is one of the most, if I can use the word successful, ecumenical movements in the world.
Brother Roger worked very hard with passion, really. He had a wonderful relationship with several popes that opened up many ways, with Pope John the 23rd in particular, right back in the 50s, in 1958, and then with Pope John Paul II, who himself visited Taizé, and it continues today. And so many of the meetings that he had with people, with church leaders, Catholic and non-Catholic, helped the community enormously.
Now, when Brother Roger said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he did say that the Taizé community, I don't know if he said specifically that it's in full communion with Rome. How does that work?
Yes, I think it's important to say that it's not just an ecumenical institution where people represent positions in a kind of static way, but there's a dynamism. There's saying we can try to live out reconciliation today, and yes, there is a community that is ecumenical. At the same time, Taizé does have this communion with Rome, with the Pope, and the idea is not to to protect a status quo and to say we are defending positions, but it's to move forward towards the reconciliation. And that means sometimes accepting to take risks, to open up to things that are not in your own heritage, but that are part of God's gifts to His people.
Yeah. Do you only have brothers in Taizé in France, or do you have communities in other places?
In the small village of Taizé, there are about 70 brothers living permanently, and about 30 brothers live among the very poor in Brazil, in Africa, in Asia as well, in Bangladesh, in South Korea. That was part of Brother Roger's vision, not just unity among Christians, but to try to work towards greater unity in the human family.
And now, and the brothers that live in those developing countries, is that a part of, I hate to say that your formation, that you have to spend some time, or are they permanently there?
They are there for many years. We hesitated to use the word foundation because Taizé was all about accepting to be provisional, temporary. No, okay. But I mean, we've been in Brazil for 40 years, in Bangladesh for 30 years, so it's a long temporary commitment. But there's something being, for example, in Bangladesh in the midst of a Muslim population, or the same in Senegal. It's an important message today to say it's possible to build up friendships between Christians and Muslims. And so it's another aspect of the community life.
Right. Taizé is also one of the leading pilgrimage sites around the world. And I don't know if pilgrimage is the right word, but I know that that's how it's described. But mostly young people, travel to Taizé. They can spend a week there, they can spend 3 months there. How does that work?
Oh, you're right. People do come, and even when Pope John Paul came, he said, like you pilgrims and friends, the Pope is only passing through. And he said those wonderful words about a spring of water.
Yes.
One passes by Taizé, one passes by a spring of water. And I think that's what we would like, that people come for a week. They generally come on Sunday. They stay a full week, leave the following Sunday. They participate in the prayer 3 times each day. They participate in the weekly program, Bible introductions, reflection, small group sharing, workshops. I could say maybe that we would like them to discover 2 things: the richness of an inner life, the beauty of an inner life, and also a sense of solidarity in the human family. Brother Roger's own life was about that. When he started, he welcomed refugees during the war.
Right.
And then constantly there was this dimension of living actions of solidarity in humanity. And so we would like young people, yes, to grow in their faith, in their prayer, but also to think about how they can make a difference where they live.
Right. Now, and I think this is an extension of the same mission. You also, since 1978, have been having gatherings around the world for young people? That's
right, yes. That started because our message after people have spent a week is go back to your local church, go back to your parishes. And for some young people that was quite difficult, quite abstract, because they didn't have an experience of a parish. Right. And so we thought, let's go outside of Taizé every year and prepare, starting in Europe, a European meeting with thousands of young people, maybe 30,000, 40,000 or more, and ask the churches of a city to welcome them, families to open their doors. And so we've been doing that since '78, and then invitations came to do the same in Asia, in Africa, in South America. Right. And so all of these meetings are part of what we have called a pilgrimage of trust across the earth.
Right, because it's important to, once you're at the mountaintop, everyone wants to stay at the mountaintop. We have to go back down. The Europe. So these meetings, are they similar to the New Year's European gatherings?
They're similar in their structure, in that parishes welcome people, families welcome people. But of course, we adapt to the situation. In Kenya, for example, 2 years ago, just a few months after the violence that really cost so many victims, it was possible to have people stay in homes, people from different tribes. Now we're preparing for Chile at the end of December or early December. Yeah. There'll be a huge South American gathering in Santiago. And the brothers just arrived just before the earthquake in Chile. Right. And they're busy preparing that. And we just finished a few weeks ago in the Philippines.
Right. And okay, so maybe that's important to mention. So Chile at the end of this year, 2010.
That's right, December 2010.
And the meeting in Rotterdam is this?
And then that's the usual European meeting after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's, 4.5 days, this year in Holland, for the first time in Holland, in the city of Rotterdam.
Okay, great. We're just going to take a little break at this point, but don't go anywhere. It's a very short break. When we come back, we will be looking at the question of the week, and we will continue sharing perspectives on Taizé, so don't go anywhere.
Let us know your perspective. Email us at perspectives@saltandlighttv.org or reach us by mail, Perspectives at Salt and Light Television, 114 Richmond Street East, Toronto, Ontario, M5C 1P1, or call us toll-free at 1-888-302-7181. Let your perspective be heard. The great prayer of the Protestant monk, Brother Roger Schutz, was for all people to walk in communion with each other. He lived to make that prayer a reality, and that's why he started the Taizé Community. Brother Roger was always known to be a simple and gentle man, a man who believed only in love. Thus it was painful to hear that on August 16, 2005, he was killed by a mentally disturbed woman. He died the same year as Pope John Paul II, who received Brother Roger every year in a private audience. Pope John Paul II once said that one passes through Taizé as one passes close to a spring of water. In his affectionate letter to Pope Benedict the day before his death, Brother Roger assured Benedict of his ecumenical community's intention to walk in communion with the Pope. At Brother Roger's funeral mass on August 23, 2005, communion was given out to all the faithful, regardless of religious denomination. In his funeral homily, Cardinal Walter Casper, the president of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, said that the springtime of ecumenism has flowered on the hill of Taizé. A year later, Pope Benedict celebrated the one-year anniversary of Brother Roger's death in one of his weekly audiences. The Pope described Brother Roger's life as a testimony of Christian faith and ecumenical dialogue, a precious teaching for entire generations of young people.
I remember when Brother Roger was killed. It was probably one of the most shocking news. We were here at Salt and Light, and I can't imagine how it would have impacted your community. How did that event affect the mood, of your community, of your mission?
Yes, Brother Roger was killed at the beginning of evening prayer. And it's so surprising that a man of peace should be killed at the beginning of prayer with the community. There were 2,500 people present.
Mm-hmm.
I think no one could immediately understand what was going on and why such a thing could happen. We just noticed that the prayer went on and people kept singing, and then we had to make another prayer later in the evening, and people who came from outside said, we've never seen such a sense of peace when there's been a crime, when there's been something so awful happening. I think perhaps even his death was a sign that there's something greater than evil, something greater than all the horrible things we see in the world. And so many signs of friendship were signs of compassion, of friendship were expressed even by Pope Benedict right away in Cologne. It was during World Youth Day in Cologne.
Yes, I know.
And the impact, I think, is, yes, we are in a mystery. Often death is a mystery. We don't understand immediately, but we sense that there will be fruit sometimes. In mysterious ways. And we continued. We felt that Brother Roger's death was also an invitation to continue along the path that he had started. And he left on the last day. He said to a brother, come here. And he said, could you write down this sentence? He was preparing the annual letter that he published always for the European meeting. And he said something, an incomplete sentence. He said something about, in so far as our community is able to help broaden, widen something in the human family. And he didn't continue his sentence. He ran out of breath. And we said, what did he mean? To widen, to broaden. Maybe that's necessary today for the church, for humanity, to reach people where they are. And that pushed us, it's maybe one partial answer to his idea, to go to more countries, to prepare more gatherings in different parts of the world. But we're still searching to understand.
It's almost as if he's allowing you to finish the sentence.
Perhaps that's what he was
allowing
doing.
us to finish the sentence.
Yes.
You shared with me an email a few days ago, and I was very moved by your words. You said that what goes on in Taizé is trying to make the sources of trust accessible to young adults today. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think when people come to Taizé, they come, as you know, in their thousands, and they arrive, and they, even if they've read on the website what Taizé is about, they still are a little bit surprised to think that they're in a place where they'll be praying 3 times each day. And we get a variety of people. We get people who are very committed in their church, but we also get people for who Christianity is something very new. They're baptized perhaps, but they haven't been to church in a long time. And suddenly they say, can I pray 3 times a day? Is that possible for me? Maybe I should leave right away because I'm not going to make the whole weekend. And the surprise is that they can pray. And I think that's what I meant when I said making the sources of trust accessible is for people with very little background, very little knowledge in liturgy and church prayer, to feel that prayer is not just for other people, for people who know how to do such things, but it can really be for me with my very little knowledge of Christianity, that Christ is accessible.
So trusting that it's not about us, but about God.
And that we can be ourselves in prayer, because we always think we have to put on this special character and use.
Or you have to pray a certain way.
Yes, and discover I can be myself. Just like people who come to Taizé discover that they're welcome with their doubts, with their questions. Often people think Christianity is about certainties. It's about knowing and having clear vision about all the difficult questions. Whereas it's not like that. We learn how to trust. And of course we want to deepen our knowledge of Christ and our knowledge of the gospel, but we also know that it's far beyond anything we can grasp. And we're all beginners in a way. No matter what stage we are at in life, we're all beginners in faith.
Well, it's actually that prompted us to develop our question of the week, which has been on our website all week. Should prayer require effort? And it's been really interesting. We really struggle with that. And I'm glad you said what you just said, that a lot of people feel that, oh, I can't pray, it's too hard, or it's too complicated, or I don't have enough education, or whatever. Is there a difference? Because I think you would say that prayer, well, you just said it, that prayer is simple, or doesn't need to be complicated. But can prayer be simple, yet still require effort?
It requires a certain perseverance. I think we must accept that we're going to pray and not immediately feel the rewards, the benefits of prayer. No, we may just be in God's presence and say, it makes sense to be here. It makes sense to be here if I don't feel it right away. And so in that sense, yes, it requires a certain bodily presence. Even to go to a place of prayer, to be bodily, to be prayer with your body, it's an expression of your desire to pray. But you're not going to feel always that God is present or that it's worth taking this time.
So then do you think that a lot of people are approaching prayer expecting something? I am praying so that I get a result, or I need, like you said, I need to feel something, and that's the wrong approach? I
think we should expect something. As if Jesus tells us to pray, go into your room, close your door, your Father sees in secret. It's because God has something to say to you.
Okay.
He may not have in mind exactly what you have in mind, but He's there for you, and that's what Jesus wants us to understand. But the biggest effort sometimes is to let go, is to make less effort. That can be the effort also, to let go, to say,
and that's hard.
I have to wait. I have to learn how to wait on God, to be there, to persevere. Nothing seems to be happening. And that's part of, when you're creating something, when you're an artist or a musician or a writer, you know that you go through phases where you get the impression it's not going to work. Right? It's the same with prayer. Right. You go through different stages where you get the impression this is not in my control. And it's a necessary discovery. We do not know how to pray, Paul says in one of his letters. And we have to accept that. We learn how to pray. But prayer sometimes is more simple than we think, because it's not about having all the right words, but it's about being there for God. The most wonderful definition that I know of prayer is to accept to be a non-orphan. We are not orphans.
So it's about relationship.
And it can be
that we're children of God.
In the place of prayer we can realize that. In our everyday life we can realize that. We can live our everyday life as non-orphans, as people who are loved and cared for.
Yeah. Now, when you said to me earlier, as well in that same email, that that you're helping young people have a vocabulary that will enable them to approach the Christian mystery, is that what you mean? That the vocabulary, that we think we need a vocabulary in terms of words, but it's a different kind of vocabulary that we need in terms of that openness to relationship.
Yes, people are worried sometimes they don't understand the Christian vocabulary, the complicated words of Christianity. We have these words that are sometimes complicated in the Christian faith, and we need to discover them, of course, but also to realize that things are more accessible than we think. And so I wasn't talking so much about creating a new vocabulary, even though sometimes it is important. Brother Adra, for example, would speak of trust in God. Trust in God. He didn't speak so much about having faith, but trusting in God. He felt it was a more personal invitation to grow in trust. Sometimes there are people you meet and you know you can trust them.
Yes.
Immediately. You don't know them very well, but you know you can trust them. And with God, sometimes the experience of prayer, and I think the experience of song. The experience of chanting can be what makes you trust, open up to beauty.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we haven't spent any time talking about the music, and I didn't want to leave without asking you how the music fits into that greater mission.
I think the most wonderful thing about song and music, which is the heart of prayer, Taizé 3 times each day, is that it's disarming. Beauty is disarming. You put down your shield and your things that protect you. We're not afraid to open up to what is beautiful.
That's so true.
And so many people are afraid of God today. They are afraid that if they open up, they will lose their freedom. They will no longer be themselves. And when you open up to beauty, you say, no, beauty dispels fear.
Right.
It removes fear. And then that openness becomes possible.
So the music is that one thing that I love that disarms us. We like to finish every episode with the last words, because we like to leave the last words to the one who is the Word. And so this Sunday, we actually have two choices of gospel. The people, parishes that are having rites of Christian initiation might do the second scrutiny, and that gospel is from the Gospel of John. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the beginning of the Gospel, chapter 9, verse 1 to 7, goes like this. As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the words of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, Go and wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. Any last words?
What's a wonderful passage is that you see the human mind working. Where is God?
Yes.
Huh? Is God the explanation for this man's blindness? And we have this question every day. Is God behind an illness? And Jesus' answer is very clear. No, God is not the cause of illness, of suffering. Where do you find God? You find him in the effort that Jesus makes to heal this man, in the works of compassion. Mm-hmm. That's where you find God. And today is the same, really. We won't find an explanation for suffering, but we'll find God in the compassion that is there when people do suffer and when there is this inventiveness of love that is manifested.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brother Émile. It's like I said, always a pleasure to have you in our country. Well, it's your country too. You are from Ontario. But also when you're able to stop by in our studio.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your story and your experience with Taizé.
Thank you very much.
If you'd like to find out more about Taizé, just go to their website, taizé.fr. And if you missed any part of this program or to watch any of our Perspectives programs, either the daily or the weekly edition, visit our website, saltandlighttv.org/perspectives. All the shows are archived there, and that's also where you can find our question of the week. Remember, we cannot do this show without your perspective. So that's all for tonight. Have a good evening, and may God bless you and your home. Thank you so much.
Thank you.